Are you looking for your next role in tech? Whether or not you're looking for a product manager, software engineer, or other type of role, having a good resume is the first step to being able to get into the door of your dream company. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the steps that you need to create the perfect resume for tech roles. From making sure the structure is right to ensuring that it's ATS friendly. Let's dive in. The first thing to note is that you want to have a strong resume with really good experiences right at the top. The resume isn't just a detail of your past experiences, it's a really good way for you to actually showcase your skills on a deeper level. In the tech world, hiring is very competitive right now, and so in order to get noticed, you have to make sure you structure things in the right way. This means building your resume to highlight a few main things: your strengths, relevant experience, and technical job skills. Remember, hiring managers and recruiters often actually only look at a resume for about 6 to 10 seconds, so you have a very small window of time to be able to catch their eye. You want to make sure that your information is presented cleanly and that you aren't forcing the person to have to look through many pieces of info to determine whether or not you fit the role. You have to give that information to them very early on. So let's talk about the actual structure of the resume. It's a simple rule, which is you should start with the sections that make the most impact. These sections include your summary statement, work experience, skills section, education, and any certifications you've had. That's about it. If your resume is more than 2 pages, you're wrong. You want to make sure that it goes into that same format of being 1 page if you only have a few years of experience, or 2 pages if you are a more senior employee. Within your summary statement, this only needs to be maybe 2 to 3 sentences max. You want to make sure that you highlight the information that is most important. What type of roles are you looking for? What really defines you? If you had to give a summary of your career in just 1 to 2 sentences, what would you want people to say? Are you looking for a certain type of role? Do you have a certain type of experience? Focus on those things before everything else. The experience section is what's really going to be the most important. People are going to judge what types of companies you've worked at before, and so you want to make sure this is something they can find very easily. This should also come right after the summary statement unless you're a recent graduate. You next want to have your skills section, which is especially important if you're in a technical role like software engineering. You want to list out some of the core languages that you work in, or some of the core pieces of technology that you have used in your career. Going down to the education section, if you're a current college student, then you can list some of the relevant coursework that you might have taken that will fit your degree. For example, if you're in computer science and you've taken a computer vision class or a certain type of coding class, you can list those things. But if you've been out of college for a few years and are in the workforce for a little while, then these things become less relevant and your education should go at the bottom. Last is to include any certifications and projects that you might have. Projects are great for people, especially software engineers early on in their career who are trying to land new technical roles. If they don't have that internship experience, demonstrating good projects is a really good way for them to be able to stand out. Moving on to the details of the summary statement itself, there's only a couple things you really have to say here. You want to talk a little bit about what roles you might be looking for and what the highlight of your experience is. What do you want to be remembered as? For example, a good summary statement is a dynamic product manager with 5 years of experience, leading cross-functional teams, and driving product launches in fintech. This gives a quick summary of you as a person, but it doesn't need to go into tons and tons of detail. Next, let's look at the actual structure of the resume bullet points. This is one of the most important things that you can have on the resume. There's a format that Google recruiters use called the XYZ format that details your experiences in a certain way. Basically, when you write a resume bullet point, you want to write it as accomplished X by Y amount by doing Z. This enables you to have a ton of structure and a ton of detail in the actual bullet points themselves. They don't need to just be lists of actions that you have taken. Oftentimes people make the mistake of having their resume bullet points be too surface level. What people want to know is, what is the context? What specifically did you do that's relevant to the job you're applying for? And then what was the result of it? For a product manager, here's a good example. You might have led a cross-functional team to launch a SaaS platform, increasing user acquisition by 20% in 6 months by implementing targeted A/B testing. Now this talks a good bit about the same structure that we mentioned before. He mentioned specifically A/B testing as the specific actions he took. He talked a little bit about launching the product, which is the scenario and the overall context. And he spoke about the improvement in user acquisition, which speaks to their ability to do the same thing at your company. This shows exactly what you did, why you did it, and the measurable impacts that it actually had. The next portion is to highlight your skills. So within your skills section, you want to try and use what's in the job description that you're applying for. Nowadays, with AI technologies, it's actually pretty easy to find the specific skills that you are looking for. Let's say, for example, you're applying for software engineering roles. What you'll probably want to do is take 5 to 10 different job postings for companies you want to work with and have ChatGPT actually look for a list of common skills that you might need to have. For example, it might be things like cross-team collaboration, working with stakeholders, etc. A lot of those terminologies are actually built directly into the job description, and so by having an AI tool extract them out, you'll be able to see which ones are the most important to the company. This also works for technical skills as well. You certainly can showcase all of your technical skills, but you want to focus on just highlighting the ones that are the most relevant to the job you're applying for. For example, if you're applying for a mobile developer position, you'll want that resume to really speak to those specific languages and skills. Again, nowadays with AI technologies, you can actually tweak your resume a little bit to each job description without it having to be overly redundant work for yourself. Just making those small tweaks can help the resume get picked up by the automated tracking systems, which enables you to actually get ahead to the next interview. And speaking of the ATS, you want to make sure that your resume is ATS friendly. There's a couple of simple tips to do that. One is to use a very simple design. Remember, we wanted to use just a standard format for the resume rather than any sort of graphic design, etc. The reason being is oftentimes if you have your resume in a format that's not a PDF, it actually won't even get picked up by the scanners. It won't be able to visually parse through all the words that you've written, which means your resume will automatically get tossed out. Next, we've talked a lot about some of the details you want to have and focusing on those keywords. Look at those job descriptions that we mentioned and see where are your skills the strongest in what they're looking for. You want to highlight those and build them into the technology of your XYZ resume bullet points. For example, if the job is for a product manager and it talks a lot about using APIs or it talks about doing data analysis to understand customer trends, you'll want to make sure you include those terms wherever you can in your resume. Obviously, don't just blatantly lie about things you haven't done, but if you can frame your experiences through the lens of those requirements, you have a much better shot at landing that next interview. And then, as we've touched on with your education, certification, and projects, one of the big things is that certifications are nice, but people want to see what you have done with the certifications. Anybody can sit in front of a computer for a few hours, take a certification course, and then pass a test. But what really looks good is if you're able to take the certification in a new area that you might have learned and apply that to a personal project. This way you can show that you have demonstrable experience in the skills that they're looking for and in the skills you built, rather than it just being something that you took a test on one time and then forgot about. And again, as we mentioned before, the later you get into your career, the less important your education becomes. So you want to keep it kind of towards the bottom of your resume and make sure that you highlight more of your space in those 2 pages on things like your work experience, good projects if you have them, and then any good, really nice skills you have built. Your education obviously always helps, but it's just not one of the main things that people always look for. And then, so some of the main tips we've looked at for a winning resume in 2024 is to ensure that you tailor each resume to the job application you're applying to. And again, this doesn't have to be major changes. You can simply have an AI tool look at the resume, look at the job description, and make some slight changes. You should definitely write your original resume first yourself, and then use AI to try and improve it just a little bit and maybe tweak some of the terms here and there. This is especially important if you're applying to different families of roles entirely. If you're a software engineering student and you're trying to apply to product management roles, at the bare minimum, you should create a second resume for product management roles so that you can actually showcase your skills in that lens. It might require you to reword some of what you've written, but it's certainly worth it. The second is to quantify your achievements. So again, people want to see in those bullet points the real context of why you wrote what you did. If you're able to showcase the achievement in a way that is digestible to the recruiter, you'll have much more credibility to your arguments and your experiences. Last, make sure you proofread. At the bare minimum, you want to make sure there's no simple errors in your resume. For example, we've seen resumes in the past get tossed out because people are scanning for certain types of technologies when they actually mean something else. There was a job posting where a hiring manager was looking for Angular JS, but instead the recruiters were looking for Angular. Those are two very similar technologies, but you want to make sure you showcase the right skill and look for any proofreading and typing errors of that sort. So that's it for today's video. Creating the perfect resume can seem like a daunting task, but it's actually gotten a lot easier than it was before. You want to make sure that you're using the best of your skills and showcasing them in that XYZ format to really get the most out of your experience. Reflect on your experiences too. Make sure that you take the time to actually walk through the things that you've done to put them into the resume bullet points. The resume isn't the whole deliverable, it's the result of the work that you've done to get there, and you want to make sure you showcase that work accurately. If you're interested in following along for more career tips, feel free to subscribe to the channel and join my Slack community below. Thanks.